Welcome to For the Love of It, Tafe New South Wales sessions. I'm your host, Steph Pappas, and on this special edition, all our guests share a common pathway that Tafe New South Wales have supported their dreams. We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gadigal people of Eora Nation. We pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging. We extend a warm welcome to Weave, a trailblazing fashion designer whose journey from Adelaide to Sydney has been nothing short of remarkable.
Thank you.
At just 17, Weave made a significant move interstate to pursue her passion for fashion. Transferring to study with Tafe in Sydney, her career began with designing hip-hop inspired clothing under her first label, Cyber Thief, where she quickly gained recognition, even dressing icons like Ice-T. Over the years, her career has evolved, transitioning from hip-hop to high-end fashion. Her brand by Weave has graced runways from Hong Kong to Australian Fashion Week and has been worn by celebrities worldwide. Additionally, Weave has ventured into the realm of sustainability with Yukio brand, where she incorporates eco-friendly practices into her designs. Today, we have the pleasure of delving into the remarkable journey of Weave, who will be sharing many pathways she's explored in music, fashion, and creative arts, doing what she loves, paving her way, making me emotional, into creative industries. Welcome, Weave, to For the Love of It sessions. Thank you so much. My very first guest.
I'm so honoured to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and what a beautiful introduction. You've made me emotional as well.
I felt emotional weaving through your journey. I've actually have crossed paths with you probably quite a few years back when I was living up in the Central Coast. But it was more just crossing paths and saying hello, but actually delving deep into your story. So much respect for you as a creative soul who has just continued to follow your passion no matter what obstacle laid in your way.
That's very, very true.
Well, let's dive in. I want to start because Tafe New South Wales paved a part in your journey. Let's start when you moved into Sydney. You were transferred, you were studying down in Adelaide, you came to East Sydney. Tell us about that journey. Maybe a memory of a mentor or an experience that you can share with us.
Well, really interesting because I was 16 when I finished year 12 in Adelaide. We started quite young, we were 4. And so I knew that I wanted to be a designer always. All I did was draw and create, and it was intrinsic in my makeup actually. And I got into the certificate course Marston Tafe in Adelaide. And that was amazing. That's actually how I learnt the industry side of things. It was very much about cutting and, the really raw side of it. It wasn't based so much around design. It was the raw, need to be able to create your own things on an industry level. So that was like I'll never be more grateful for that period of my life, learning to wear mesh gloves with the cutting machines. And that gave me a real, stepping stone to being accepted into the one in Sydney, which was East Sydney Tafe. And really that was so esteemed at that time.
With Nicholas Huxley.
With Nicholas Huxley.
Yes.
And so many people were applying for that. And it was a very minimal amount of people that got in. So I literally couldn't believe it. Just a little girl from the Adelaide Hills and country, South Australia. And to be able to get into something like that, it was just the most unbelievable start to my career, really. It gave me such insight very quickly into what needed to happen. So that was a lot more design-based, I think. And so that's where I feel like I had a really good balance of not coming into that thinking that I'm just going to be a designer. I knew how raw the industry was at that time. So it was a big move.
Yeah, because that course, it really, I was also there in 91 and it really covered different facets of the fashion industry, from communications to the illustrations, allowing us to have different jobs in the industry. Did you find that? Was there a particular teacher that you remember as a mentor back then?
Oh gosh, I
Yeah.
mean, look, I was so into the art at that stage. So the printing teacher,
Yes.
John, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah,
yeah.
he was very kind and very supportive, and I think that was, across the board with the TAFE teachers that I came across. Everybody was emotionally invested in our careers and ourselves as personal, relationships as well. There was nobody that sort of was there that was just like, this is how it has to be. There was a lot of emotional support because it was a struggling time.
We were artists.
We
Yeah.
we weren't sort of necessarily there for the money. We were there, to create a lifestyle for ourselves and live our dreams out. And they were very supportive of that.
And a lot of emerging artists came out of that period that are still operating today, like yourself. I want to go back to growing up in the Adelaide Hills because there was a particular incident when you were very young where you really knew that there was a relation between freedom, travel and fashion. Do you remember? Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the Oakbank Weaver.
Yes.
Oh, bless you. You have delved deep.
Yes, I have.
Wow. I was very
I
small.
love that story. I want to hear it in your words.
Oh,
Yeah.
gorgeous. Okay. So I had a little white pony and I actually grew up on a breeding stable. So we were very blessed to be riding every day. And I think that's sort of why my fashion is very equestrian. Like it's always lots of tailoring. I'd ride my little pony down to the main street and there was an antique shop, a takeaway shop with Space Invaders 20-cent games and all that stuff. 70s was a great time. And the little weaving shop was called the Oakbank Weaver. Being that my name was Weave, I really obviously resonated with this beautiful woman that was in there with long, white, flowing hair, and she used to travel around Europe and come back with all these incredible artifacts and weavings. And I just was really captivated with the fabrication and the textures and the way that it was sort of put together and her stories of driving around in a combi and just picking up these things. And I was awestruck by her and I was like, that's the life I want at some point. Yeah, so even though I've travelled a very different road to that, but it's still very, very intrinsically about fabric. Like everything comes to me when I see fabric. That's the starting point. If anyone ever says what inspired you, it's the fabric. It's the feeling, it's the texture, how it makes you feel, it's a motive. That's it.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go there in the next session, but I actually, when I was in the design process, it was always to me about going to those textile shops or seeing the buyers and you create from the fabric, so I can relate to that.
There's such a depth to it that people probably don't understand, and understanding, the nature of where the silkworm grew up.
So Weave has made this blouse that I'm wearing today.
Yeah, so, what comes with the production of fabric and the land and nurturing land and watering and what that means to the weather cycles. And, there's a really deep story that comes behind all of that. And, when you're talking about sustainability, the dyes, where are the dyes coming from? And, who's like leaking dyes into the environment? And, then it becomes quite political. So as much as people say fashion is sort of a bit of an airy-fairy kind of thing, it's not. It's a very deep industry that has a lot of concern.
Yes. We'll go into the brand when we come through, but I just want to stay in Adelaide because there was also your family there and growing up on the land with the horses, and they used to have these parties at a lot of fashion as well. So it sounds like you were surrounded by elegance and that contributed a lot to your journey.
Yeah, my father was the chairman of the racecourse and very, very well respected in the industry there, and so a lot of people from overseas would come and stay at our property and celebrate, all that is breeding and horses, and it was quite an exciting thing. And my mother was very beautiful and always in beautiful dresses, and I definitely looked up to her and the way that she was so elegant in the way she held herself at that point. So
as you do.
Oh, thank you. But I guess that's where the original inspiration for fashion came from. Yeah.
From and those surroundings. And you went into boarding school and then you were introduced at a young age to the music industry and hip hop, and that diverted your path. You want to share a bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Actually, it was prior. I remember when I was really, really young.
Yes.
And I heard Boney M on the radio.
Yeah.
And I would have been, probably 7 or 8, I would say at that time. And I'd never heard anything like it, like the rhythm and the blues and the soul. And I don't know, it's obviously, intrinsically in your makeup when you're a music lover. And there's something about what you really resonate with music. And I do remember Dad saying to me when I was quite young, it's your birthday, you can choose whatever you like. And I said, the Hot Chocolates CD. He gave me the first CDs had just come out, so I got that. So I obviously
with a CD player, something to play it on.
I don't know that. Actually, I won a CD player when I was very little for a chocolate company. So music was already in me. So I think music, art, and fashion is the melting pot of who I am completely and wholly. So yeah, when I got to boarding school and I met these fellas that had come out from London.
Yep.
They were breakdancing in Rundle Mall, and I'd never seen anything like it. And there they are in their amazing bomber jackets and all these very, very cool outfits and moves and music. And yeah, I just was so captivated by, the thought of London and what that meant, and
in the hills of Adelaide.
And it really so far away.
Yeah, and it really opened your eyes and a doorway
to
how to bring the fashion in.
Yes, and so I used to have bubble skirts. Do you remember the bubble skirts?
Yeah, completely.
So I used to cut the waistband off of them and I'd have enough fabric then to turn it into a bomber jacket. So I started my career basically making bomber jackets for my friends who were all into hip-hop and I became very, very immersed in that world. It wasn't hip-hop as we know it now. It was a very, very different space. It was about the ethics of culture. It was about the ethics of art. It was about the ethics of youth voice. It was a very, very powerful community back then. It's obviously changed into money and things and I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but money and bitches and things, which is something that I don't represent whatsoever. So as an adult, I did move out of that a little bit more. Still always love the music from where it came from, but yeah, it just sort of evolved into something that I don't really represent anymore.
And well, it's still part of the story, isn't it?
Of course, and then, it's made me who I am.
Exactly. And once you came to Sydney, was it there that you started the hip-hop label as the very first label?
As an actual label? Yes. That's when I was like, oh my gosh, like this is real. I'm in Sydney, there's a huge community here of underground hip hop, and I was meeting all the breakers and I was meeting all the graffiti artists that were really, really well respected. And so,
Ice-T.
Ice-T was an Adelaide thing, actually.
Oh, was it? Okay, yeah. I thought that happened in Adelaide, actually.
Yeah, some friends of mine actually were supporting him and they asked if I'd do the outfitting for it. So they were my first stage costumes ever.
And you were like 14?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Truly amazing.
Truly amazing. So you're now living in Sydney. Let's come back to Sydney. You're studying at Tafe. Did you start at the markets? Like a lot of us started our labels by selling at the markets, Bondi, Paddington.
No, I didn't.
Where did you start?
No, I didn't. I never did anything like that at that stage. It was very much about getting into costume.
Okay.
Yeah, so that music thing very much was resonating in my Sydney life as well. I was working in nightclubs on the doors at Freezer and Good Bar.
Mr. Good Bar?
Yes. And I was working in all sorts of realms and whoever I could meet making costumes or outfitting. And the career really was starting to take off then because I was immersed in the scene.
In the creative scene in Sydney, and it was so vibrant.
It was
then,
so
wasn't it?
vibrant.
It was so happening.
It was so great.
I say to my children, I was so hip, those days, and they just, no, Mum, we don't want to know.
Yeah, and I had a wonderful warehouse in Surrey Hills, which it's now called China Heights. It's quite a well-esteemed art gallery now, but that was where we had amazing parties and amazing get-togethers and workshops, and there was artists and musicians and me, and that was just, my daughter was raised sort of growing up in that environment.
So you had your daughter quite young. How did that contribute to, because I know, the balance between motherhood and following your passion, where did you find the challenges there?
I mean, before we do challenges, I think it's nice to know that, that choice of independent life is based around maternal instinct as well, and that you want to have a life where you can have your children next to you, and that I didn't have to go to work every day and leave her somewhere. I was so sure that I wanted to have that lifestyle where she was next to me all the time. She did go to childcare sometimes, don't get me wrong, but
she was in the warehouse and amongst that
she was little growing up with me, and I was able to be a part of her upbringing, like so closely. So the challenges that come with that, obviously, is, you know, when they're sick, you're the one that has to stay home and not do anything. So the independent lifestyle has so many challenges, no matter whether you're a parent or you're not parent. But in that realm, I'm so grateful that I was able to be completely on hand with her, because my family were all in Adelaide at that stage, or scattered around Australia actually by that stage.
And in 1996, you started the label By Weave. Have I got that correct? And that label went on, I mean, you have dressed celebrities like the Veronicas, so many pathways. Do you want to share, you know, what drove you to begin the label? And what are some of the most, you know, extraordinary experiences that really surprised you?
How long have we got?
There's a lot.
Look, that was really just an organic evolvement from what Cyber Thief was.
Yes.
I feel like we were growing up. The people that I was dressing were growing up. The streetwear became a little bit more evolved. People were starting to do red carpets, so they wanted something a little bit more glamorous. They were starting to get married, so wedding dresses started coming into play. The tailoring, because I'm a tailor, that was really starting to come into play as well at that stage. It was just like a very natural, organic process to going to that next level. And I knew that I had a more high fashion sensibility to myself. That's what I trained in when I was young and at fashion school as well. So that was a really beautiful progression and just naturally evolved. And my partner and I separated when my daughter was around 8 years old, and so he was very much a part of the hip hop community as well. It was again a natural evolvement into, you know, where I was going next and what I was doing next. I started traveling around the world, and being introduced to some very, you know, unbelievable experiences around the world and seeing high fashion. And a friend of mine actually was Sally Penn, actually I'll call her out. She was doing Fashion Week in New York, and she was a TAFE girl as well.
Okay.
And she invited me to the show and to stay with her. So I got to go to my first New York Fashion Week show, you know, when I was very, very young, and it was extraordinary just seeing the streets of New York and what that meant, and hip hop and music and what that meant, which was already like conversing into high fashion at that stage. It was all very melded, whereas here it was all very separate. So it was lovely to be a part of a global network and a global community. Opened my eyes up so much to how it all entwined and wove together into one. So that was beautiful. So I got to meet some extraordinary people as well. And so starting to dress and make outfitting, really wonderful human called Aloe Black, who my best friend Maya, she got married to him, and so I got to make incredible outfitting for him. And gosh, I mean, the list is extraordinary. I'm like even struggling off the top of my head right now, but it's.
How was the Veronicas? Did you dress?
Veronicas was gorgeous. That was amazing. That was really when I was in my heyday, and that made the cover of Foxtel magazine. That was pretty exciting at the time. But it was extraordinary because, like I said before, bringing music and fashion and art together has always been, you know, my goal.
The driving force.
Yeah. Well, actually, the Cyber Thief website, the internet had only just sort of hit, and so some friends of mine that were able to utilize that and build a website for me. So the first ever website that I had for Cyber Thief was a music, art, fashion fusion where people were able to upload their music and then expose that, because it wasn't really around. A lot of people hadn't tapped into that at that stage.
We didn't have Spotify and iTunes.
So we'd put, art that some of the graffiti artists had done, that they'd do Cyber Thief T-shirts for us, and the music that they were creating. So this platform that came about, it was quite innovative at the time, to be honest. It was like very, very early days of this.
Well, that makes me think, I feel like you've always been paving and walking to the beat of your own drum. Reflecting back on your childhood, where do you think you had this within you? Where do you draw it from?
Oh gosh, do you know I actually know the answer to this?
Yeah.
Yep.
I hope you do.
I do, I really do. And it's like I rode before I could walk. Like I was like a huge horse rider, and that's what I wanted to be when I grew up, when I was like a little girl. And I was given a big thoroughbred racehorse that didn't go very well, and we saved this racehorse. And that was my horse when I was like 9 years old. And so I'd get on this horse and gallop around the back paddocks and jumping, and it was wild, and the freedom. And once you've done something like that, the power that you have together as a horse and rider, and the freedom,
oneness,
the freedom that
right.
you experience
Yep.
through that, and the joy and the galloping and the feeling of that. It's so rhythmic, which could be a part of the music as well. But yeah, I think that really paved this incredible strength that I have, and the independence as a young girl, being able to handle that kind of animal, So really nothing feels too hard to me. Like, I work very hard. You muck out the stables. I'm so grateful to my upbringing on the country to have paved who I am.
Yeah.
Paved who I am as a human, and the strength that I have to get through this very tricky industry that we're in.
Talking about the tricky industry, what do you want to share about the industry? Because it is a very, it can be a very daunting industry, and you've really been able to, as I said, walk to the beat of your own drum and pave your own way in the industry. So how would you reflect on the industry right now?
Oh, you have to be very brave, and you have to be very sure about what you want, because it's not for the faint-hearted. You have to be so able to be judged consistently.
Yeah.
And if you can hold your head up high enough to, be thrown these things consistently and be able to rise above that and believe in yourself consistently. I have found, you do good collections and you do not so good collections, and it gets picked up by, the public, or it doesn't get picked up by the public, and so you have a really bad season. It's like an album.
I was going to say, it's so similar with music industry, fashion industry. And it's like, I always say, you put all that effort into building that collection, doing the fashion week, and then it's reliant on, does the buyers buy from you that season? If not, that sample range is sitting there.
Well, I mean, the thing is that we're so lucky now to be independents. We can have our own site. We have our own online platforms, and so you can generate the way that social media operates now. It's not all based around what the buyers are taking. It depends what level you're at, of course, or who owns you or whatever. But, for me, I feel really lucky. I have my own platform. I have wonderful events that I can bring everybody to buy from me. And so, but it is all up to, whether that collection sells and whether you can get through the next one.
And I really want to acknowledge there on that point that you do manage all facets of the business, from marketing to handling your business sales, to pattern making, to sourcing, to inspiration, to models, all of that. So you are managing all that. How do you yourself find your balance? I'm going to go to the move to the Central Coast, but what is it? Is there any tools, like maybe 2 tools that you draw upon to enable you to find that balance between doing all those roles and staying grounded,
I think that having work-life balance is obviously really important. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's all over the place. I am a very centered person, so I do have a calm that I manage. Like, I don't have anxiety. So that's, I think, a real blessing. That's one reason why I've been able to stay calm. But I do yoga and I meditate. I do things that, like, personally I need. But I also DJ. That's been something that has really helped, because I was so immersed in my whole career in that field. I think it's really important that we try new things and we do new things. And even though I've always been in music, but it's something that I think we get very pigeonholed, especially in a country like Australia. If you branch out and do something else, you can be quite ridiculed. So again, you have to be very brave and stand your ground and know that you're doing this for the benefit of your own mental health.
Yes.
And joy for others. Making people dance is such a joy. Yeah.
Back to the good bar days.
Yeah. I just really needed a new outlet. Like, I've been playing music for a very, very long time, but professionally, that's only been the last few years.
Well, I wanted to go there because from Sydney, you moved with your daughter to the Central Coast, which I have also lived.
Yeah.
And in that experience, you continued the fashion, but there was a moment when your daughter left the nest and you headed overseas after some time of, adjusting, but then you headed overseas.
Yeah.
Do you want to share a bit of that experience?
Yeah, so I had wanted to move to LA for a really long time. I'd lived in Bali at one stage doing some production there.
How was that? Yeah.
Didn't ethically sit with me very well.
Okay.
Yeah, I really struggled with a lot of the things that were going on there. So I moved over to LA because I knew the music and arts and fashion scene were really huge. Best time, but yes, I had to get my visa, so I came back to Australia to sort that out, and then COVID hit,
happened,
and big collapse. So I wasn't able to go back. They shut the borders, and I was back here, and had to start again.
How was that adjustment? Because that's where you opened up the
Critical.
pathway to it. But how was it emotionally for
Critical
you?
to a personal change that I didn't ever foresee me going through. You know, like I had to become very, very still. And that's not something I've ever really been. I've always been going somewhere. I'm always looking forward, and I'm always ready for the next challenge. And that really put a big barrier around all of that. And it's like I had to really delve deeply into stillness and acceptance and gratitude and a whole bunch of things that I needed to learn in life. And I am grateful for that now. I'm resentful to a lot of that as well, that I didn't get to go and do some things that I wanted to achieve over there. Like, I lost a lot over that period. But we're rebuilding, and over the last couple of years, it was a very challenging time.
And that's when you started the DJing. So
Pretty much, professionally.
Professionally at gigs and parties.
Yeah.
And the brand Yukio, am I saying it right?
Yep.
There was, the Wind began before that, am I correct?
You really have delved.
So Wind began before that. Let's go into that collection now, because I feel like it's
beautiful. I loved it so much. Sorry, I shouldn't get that.
No, that's okay. Because I feel like it's really represents you now. If we go into that chapter, it's really showing now what came out of that experience of having to stand still, connect to country.
So Wind happened way
earlier.
Before. So that was 11 years ago. That was when I first moved to the Central Coast. And I already had that really deep connection to country, and already knew that I needed to be doing some really ethical production and changing, the pathways for what people see as clothing, because I already understood back then.
Slow fashion.
I understood slow fashion. I understood waste. I understood destruction to the earth, and I understood at that stage that we were going down a very, very dangerous pathway with clothing, and I felt like I needed to do something that was completely earth-driven. So there weren't many other people doing it at that stage. We started a little collective called the Conscious Pop-Up Shop, and we did it down at the Kincumber Town Hall, and it was a few of us that came together.
In the Central Coast.
It was on the Central Coast, and we a couple of people who were doing secondhand clothing, so the circular movement back then. I was doing completely natural handmade clothing. So it was called Wind by Weave, and that's when I started doing the market. So I started, and that was a really integral process to meet people up on the coast.
Avoca?
Avoca
markets,
Avoca Beach. And I got to meet so many amazing people by doing the market. So going up there with my daughter on my own, I'd never been there before. I didn't know a soul. And it just...
I did the same.
Yeah.
Didn't know anyone. What a beautiful community there is.
I
up
know,
there.
but delving deeper into it and discovering that a very, very old friend of mine, Lisa, who is an amazing photographer, who's here today, found that she'd moved up there as well. So, it all started to build and become a very beautiful family. And I felt like I was doing something really important with that label. It was very, very... initial stages of the movement that's like so big right now, which I'm so thrilled about. Yeah,
it's exciting. So Yukio, and there's Yukio Lifestyle.
Okay, so Yukio, so Wind, I mean, I was even doing macrame, because I was at home with my daughter. I was like, doing macrame pots and selling them. It was a little bit of like lifestyle, homewares, clothing. But then I just wanted to take that to the next level and do something a little bit more commercial with that. And it became Yukio, which is a beautiful philosophy of living above the universe in peace. That's a modern interpretation of the Japanese philosophy of what that means. I decided to change the name and become, a more prominent label with that. And so I took that, was doing production in Bali for that for a while, and that was interesting. So I brought it back here, and that's been an amazing brand.
So producing local now.
Yep, absolutely.
Incredible.
But look, I over COVID, I took a big break from that as well. I just I needed a bit of break from everything while we were going through that emotional change of being back in Australia.
And you're working on the new collection now?
Yes.
When is this being launched?
Yes, so By Weave is on the cutting board right now, so that'll be out in the next few weeks, and Yukio will be out in the next month. That's relevant, probably.
No, it's beautiful. I just want to touch on the pivotal moments that you can recall and the crossroads, just to show a creative that they all pave our path. Are there two that you can recall where you were just like, I can't keep going? But I know COVID was, during that time we've touched on, but just picking yourself back up and going again and knowing that, no, this is the path I'm taking and I'm an artist.
I've been looking into this,
yes,
myself as to why, I do get quite sad when I'm not in the process.
Yes.
And, I've been told that I'm addicted to my business and I'm addicted to creativity. And I used to see that as a negative and thought, oh my gosh, no, that's a really good thing. That's what keeps me driven and that's what keeps me going. So I think when, that pivotal time of not creating and not touching and not being your true self, that's when the break happens. That's when, that's the struggle. So I know as soon as I get the fabric and as soon as it's in my hands, it's all of a sudden this light starts to shine inside of you again and this hope again and, the ability that you have and the creation that you have and winding that all together to, be your true whole self.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Did that answer that properly?
That was beautiful. I want to finish up by asking if we're speaking to the younger you that's just entering into TAFE or to a young student now that's looking to study fashion, what are some words of wisdom that Weave could share with her or him or her?
Wow. Just believe and don't let anybody tell you that you're not doing the right thing or that you should do it a different way always listen to advice. I'm not saying don't listen to real advice, but you pick and choose which advice. But don't listen to anybody, that's telling you something that you don't truly believe. And you need to know what that is. So if you're going into TAFE and you're going into study, you need to be so sure about what it is that you're putting your time and your effort into. Don't do things half-heartedly. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work out. That's okay. If you get in, you do it. But you've got to go in with your whole heart, your whole self and your pure self because otherwise you just won't make it. You just won't succeed. That's my advice.
Let's wrap up now. Did you bring an item of something you love for the love of it?
Yes, I sure did. So for the love of it, I really love this concept of doing so. So I bought my diamond star. So this is something that I am making now and I give to people who I believe are deserving of being a star girl or boy, star girl or binary. It represents to me a idea of shining bright and longevity. Diamonds, obviously, lifetime. It represents to me, from starting out with nothing and shining to get to a point where you can finally say that you're shining like a star. And I know that sounds really silly, but these I often give to people that I work with when I feel like a real connection to that person. And it just represents where I've come from as a little girl and the struggles that I've been through to get to this point in my life. And I just really love that idea of shining bright like a star.
I'm hearing the song Shine Bright Like a Diamond. I know if we want to incorporate music into this end
but
part.
It's not just
but it's Shine Bright Like a Star. We're going to change the lyrics of that song.
Yeah, so it's
I love that.
They're my
Thank
star
you.
girls.
One of my guests suggested that we bring in this concept of bringing the item. So I'll acknowledge Chef Jason Roberts,
I love
who
it.
has weaved into your journey as well.
Absolutely.
And thank you for that little glimpse of, adding into our show. So thank you so much. And I love this item.
Thank you. Well, this one's for you.
Oh.
Yeah. So that one's for you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being on For the Love of It.
You're welcome. I'm actually really honoured to be here and I'm so grateful to be able to share any words of wisdom to the students that are coming through and, what it takes to get to the next phase and, just wishing everybody so much luck.
I could talk. We have to do another episode because I could talk to you more and go so many pathways. Thank you so much for joining me, and I love my star. I'm going to cherish this so
You're
much.
welcome. Very,
It's
very
beautiful.
welcome. Yeah, look, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being on For the Love of It Tafe Sessions. Thank you.